What's going on? This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. Edge, Escape, F-150 rolling in right now. A ton of Bronco sports will be hitting the lot early next month. New vehicles are on the way with lower interest rates. I can help you out on them. As you know, Norm James, along with Mike Augello, the Maple Leafs have won 4 in a row, 11-1-1 in their past 13. They've pretty much solidified their second spot in the division, 108 points. Yeah, 5 games to go in the regular season, but it's looking like it'll be, a second place finish with Tampa or Boston on the menu. That's a lot of fun. Mike wanted to do a midweek show, so hello to you. What's on your mind?
Good evening, Norm. I was up yesterday for the game against Philadelphia. It's tough to really gauge where your team is at playing against a team that's sort of playing out the string. Although, I said, and I got some heat from people on Twitter. I said, because after the first period, it was probably one of the worst first periods in terms of both teams that I had seen all year. They'd been outshot by a team that is essentially playing out the string, 15-12. And I'm like, here you go. Leafs once again playing down to their opposition. And then, finally the cream rose to the top. Now you can say, well, they're not going to be playing bad teams in the playoffs, but that's still not a good sign in terms of just being consistent.
What's consistent to you though, Mike? And we've been talking about this team playing down to the competition, raising its game against the top level teams, giving up leads, taking back leads. But what is consistent? It seems to me the only thing that's consistent about this team is inconsistency in the way it plays. But at the end of the day, 108 points, that's nothing to sneeze at. Actually, we should applaud that no matter what.
Right. But and Sheldon Keefe and some of the players have said this. That's all fine and good. It's great. 51 victories, 106 points and second place and home ice advantage in the playoffs. It means diddly squat if they lose in the first round.
Right.
To a team. It's like this season is the playoffs. Now that's the mentality I think that most in the fan base are adopting. It's like, oh, it's great. We love Austin Matthews. We hope he gets 60 goals. Oh, Mitch Marner's career high in points. And, Jack Campbell, 30 wins and all these individual. It means diddly. I was going to use a different word that begins with a D. It means nothing if they don't do something in the playoffs. And that's why I think the race for third place in the division is extremely meaningful because, and I'm in the minority here. I've talked to a few people. They said, "Oh, I think they can beat Tampa. Looks like they're out of gas. Tampa looks like they're feeling the that
Montreal was going to get rolled over last year too."
Right. Well, right. But the difference here is,
and Columbus was supposed to lose.
Right, but
and Boston.
But the difference here is the fact that the Leafs would be the underdog against Tampa. Even though they'd have home ice advantage, they'd be the underdog because you're talking about the 2-time Stanley Cup champions.
Right.
Okay? I don't care. It's like, if you're second place, if you have a better record, that you should win. But that's not the way the playoffs works. And Tampa Bay has slumped badly over the last month. But honestly, if I'm a Leaf fan, if I'm a Leaf player, I want nothing to do with Tampa. I'm hoping Boston catches them because in spite of the fact that there's psychic PTSD when it comes to the Boston Bruins, that they've lost 3 7-game series in the last decade, you look at that team, a rookie goaltender, not as much depth as they've been they've had a few years over the last few years. If I'm picking and choosing, I'd rather play Boston. Now, Boston could very well kick their ass,
right?
But that's the thing. That's last year. Everybody wanted to play Montreal. Okay, they got Montreal, and then what happened? They choked.
Oh my gosh!
And then that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, you got what you wanted, and then you lost. Okay, and not to legislate what happened last year all over again, but if you get the team that you want to play against, which they're not going to say it. I tried to draw it out of Sheldon Keefe. I tried to draw it out of John Tavares. I asked him, and says, I know you're not looking past Philadelphia, but you're playing Tampa. That's a team that you're likely going to play in the playoffs. That's a team that you're fighting for home ice advantage. Are you sort of looking past the Philadelphia game? And they're like, oh no, we pick every game, one game at a time. Yeah, okay, they've got the talking points. They're not going to give them bulletin board material. But if you're telling me they're anxious to play the 2-time Stanley Cup champions, I got a bridge in Brooklyn that I'll friggin' sell you.
This is the combo for Oak Ridge Ford, Norman London, Mike in Cheektowaga. Let's do a bit of a roll call. Corey Parrish in the house, David Hayna, Joe Shedler still kicking around, Veets, Mr. Truman does, Jim Bianchini. Yeah, combo on a Wednesday evening. How about it? Rob, one of the Maple brothers in the mix. And that's about it. I see essentially OGs in the, and of course, Jeremy Dubb. All OGs, guys, you are the best. You are the reason we do this. Look, the funny thing is, finally somebody's acknowledging. I got this hat at the game on Sunday. The Leafs beating the A's. All right, Mike. See, this is a standard Yankee fan. My hat's bigger than yours. More people like it. The thing is, this hat. I mean, they're expensive. I wanted one because I like the fact that it has the mesh in the back. Mm-hmm. So it was like totally legit from spring. Look at Mike. You look like Royce Smalley. Like seriously.
Derek Sanderson Jeter. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Derek Sanderson Jeter. What a beauty. Thurman Munson, the captain. So that's the thing, Mike. You break out your Yankee hat. I just want to show off my Jays hat. And then obviously Old Faithful, slim with the flat, nice and straight brim. So here's the thing. Look, we should be excited about what the Leafs are doing right now. You could suggest they're peaking too soon. You could also suggest that this is part of the ascent forward. At the end of the, go ahead.
Nobody's saying that about Florida, who's won 10 in a row. It's like, you're a week and a half.
Leaf fans, and I'm not talking about the OGs, but let's face it, there's a bulk of Leaf fans who are fucking annoying, and they I mean, everything they look inward, they're insular. There's nothing else matters. So the Leafs fans are certainly annoying, and they'll tell you that this is the championship run cometh, and no matter what anybody else does, it really doesn't matter because it's recency bias. Today. We're not worried about what happened in last year and the year before and the year before that, and the decade prior to that and the decade before that, and right. So again, and that's part of what we're doing here, Mike. And again, the boomers with gray, because everybody, we're the only ones who age. We're just kind of putting some perspective on it. Love what's happening. Matthews, thank you. Nylander, 32 goals. Career high in points. Come on now. Worth every penny. Congratulations. Let's see it happen in the playoffs now, boys. Whether it's Boston or Tampa. Here's the thing, and you mentioned it. Boston. The crest is an intangible, okay? It's the prevailing environment, the fans that you go to Boston, it's one of the best sports towns in North America. They're going to let you hear it. You're going to feel it. But are they as equipped this time around to handle the Goliath, the offensive Goliath that is the Leafs compared to the past? Probably not, right? So, Mike, you make a good point that if they can avoid Tampa and get Boston in the first round, finally exercise that demon, get some wins on the board, get a first-round win under their belts for the first time in forever, and get some bloody momentum moving forward. I like the way you're thinking, but 5 games to go, we shall see.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, and, obviously there's not much consequence right now over the remaining 5 games, 4 on the road, and then, actually, they flip-flopped the game with Detroit, so it's 3 on the road and then 2 at home, Detroit and Boston. Mm-hmm. There's not much consequence to these games. If they win tomorrow against Tampa, the magic number is 1 in terms of points to get home ice advantage. So, and not to say that, that's going to be, Tampa's motivated right now because if they, they're battling for 3rd place. And, I think they're trying to sort of recover from what's been a bad month. But you know, I mean, the Leafs, they're sort of playing with house money, and I think they want to send the right signal, because you know, if you're playing Tampa, you don't want to sort of like lay down in this game. You want to go in and do what you did the last time, which was a couple weeks ago when they won 6-2 at Amalie Arena. They want to do that again, to put a little doubt in the heads of Tampa Bay. But you know, this is a team that's won 8 consecutive postseason series. They're not intimidated. They may be concerned about like the Leafs offense and what they have, but we know when it comes to May the 2nd or May the 3rd, in the opening game of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, if the Leafs are down 2-0 or down a couple goals in the third period, whose sphincters are tightening? It's the Leafs. It's not going to be Tampa Bay. It's not if they're playing in Game 1 against Boston and you know, all of a sudden Marchand and Bergeron and Pasternak are scoring multiple goals on the power play. The pressure is on this team. It's whether they can deal with it. It's what, you know, they've added veteran guys. I like the makeup of the team. I mean, you can't say that Giordano hasn't had a positive effect. I think he's a stabilizing effect on this team. He's been playing mostly with Liljegren, and Liljegren has played great. And he's finally, you know, I had confidence in the kid going back the last couple of years that eventually he could fit in, and he really is fitting in. You know, Sheldon Keefe said that their defense is the deepest that it's been in the last few years. That's a positive. But the question marks here are, you know, can they handle the pressure? Do they get the goaltending from Jack Campbell? There are a lot of intangibles. There are a lot of question marks. Every team has question marks going into the playoffs. But with the Leafs, I mean, in spite of all the offense, in spite of, you know, the success that they've had, other than for a couple stretches, it's whether they can recover from getting punched in the nose in the first couple games of the playoffs. And we don't know if that's going to, you know, what's going to happen, because last year when they got punched in the nose down 3-1 in the playoffs, the 2 big players on this team disappeared.
Right.
They were shut down. I don't think that's going to happen again, but they got to prove me wrong.
100%, Mike. There's really not much else to say other than go, play, perform, prove, get it done. Yeah, David Hayna thinks that Shalgren will get a start tomorrow. The thing about the game against Tampa is this: if you're oblivious to the opponent tomorrow and you win or lose, but you perform well and you get some things accomplished, and one of them being staying healthy collectively and making sure that, you know, the guys who are nursing minor injuries stay engaged and everybody else on the ice stays safe. You kind of set a tone, like we've got a mission, right? And anything that we need to deal with psychologically will happen when the playoffs lights shine. As of now, this is just about closing out the regular season in a historic fashion for the organization, some personal best, and making sure that people are healthy and mentally ready for the battle. Because a win against Tampa tomorrow, you're going to have the Leaf apologists and the fanboys and the drum bangers going, "Oh, look, see, we handled them. We're going to take them down." And then if they lose, you're going to have all the skeptics and the trolls talking about how it's the last couple of games before the end of Keefe and Dubas's careers with the Maple Leafs, right? It really, it doesn't matter until they get into the playoffs and get this thing done. But you know, we can talk about it and we can gin things up or we can temper things. At the end of the day, this comes down to the guys on the ice performing for themselves, and you know, as I look at the roster, I don't see a championship roster there, but championship rosters develop, and this has the makings of something that can develop into something better and something we haven't seen, at least, you know, in this generation. So,
well,
right, Mike, it's all preamble right now, you know?
Well, okay, a couple things that I observed yesterday, and anybody who's watching the game, I think, caught this. I mean, really, you're seeing Sheldon Keefe over the last few games really just experimenting with the roster, experimenting with different line combinations. Yesterday, he put Engvall with Kerfoot and Nylander. He reunited Kerfoot and Nylander, who played well in the playoffs last year, with Kerfoot playing up the middle after Tavares got hurt. So, he did that. He played Aberzies on the number one line between Bunting and Marner, and then moved Camp up there.
Well, when Matthews isn't involved, then you can experiment, right?
Right. Well, right. But I think the point here is that when the playoffs come around, you have to have your players used to playing with other players, with different players that they normally wouldn't play with. Now, it's not just preparing yourself for what's going to happen if somebody gets injured, but you don't know if you're going to get the line change on the road, the right combos. You might want to have a defensive center playing with an offensive forward. So he's prepping them for that. That's why he's been moving around defensive pairings. Now, people are concerned that, Matthews has been out the last couple games. Muzzin's been out a few games. I got to the arena early yesterday, saw Muzzin and Matthews, Rasmus Sandeen, and Andre Kasha all skating around before the morning skate. Matthews did not look hindered at all. I don't know what the injury is. Some people think there is no injury. There might be a minor injury, but what this is, and a lot of the media asked I didn't ask the question, but other reporters, colleagues of mine, they asked the question. They mentioned the term, and we should know it well because of the history with the Raptors. Load management. Mm-hmm. Is this load management? Well, we know Matthews is the most important player on this team.
Right.
If he's got a little bang, a little minor injury, like an ankle sprain or something like that, it's right to give him a couple games off. Why exacerbate that injury going into the playoffs? Muzzin is coming off the concussion. They say the injury that he's dealing with right now is not concussion related. Why not give him a couple games? Let Liljegren get extra work. That's, you have to prep him for the potential of him being in the lineup. I honestly think he deserves to be in the lineup over a guy like Justin Hall, but we know probably they're going to go with the veteran guy to start off the playoffs.
Okay.
Rasmus Sandeen looked like he was 100%. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know what he's dealing with. We know it was a knee injury, but he looked mobile. He was spinning around and skating around with it didn't seem to have any kind of limitations. Kasha, that's the concussion. I don't know. I think if he comes back, he probably comes back deeper in the playoffs. I think they're going to be careful with him because he's had repeated concussions. But what I'm saying is that the guys who are not in the lineup don't seem like they're seriously debilitated. So I think they're going to have a full crew when it comes to that first game, except for Mrazek and Kasha. They're going to have a full crew when it comes to game one against whoever they play.
So I'm trying to give anyone who subscribes to the YouTube channel a bit of a heads up as to when we may do something. So I put out a 9 hours ago Convo update trying to collab together for tonight, latest tomorrow. Any questions, comments? If you're not subscribed to the channel, and again, never mind the fate of the project and stuff like that. But I mean, especially right now, it doesn't make any sense. You really should be. This isn't a time to play games with your subscribership or your devotion or anything. If you really like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button. And I get caught up with this too, where I'll watch YouTube videos. I spend a lot of times watching, I don't know, aviation or trans videos or something dumb like that, because that's what I do now, right? Or hockey, and I find that I've not subscribed. And it's nothing personal. I just haven't done it. So I really need to go back to the main page and go boom, subscribe. So I'm recommending you go ahead and do that because you get these exhilarating and informative updates from a guy like myself when I'm just getting out of bed. I did ask for some questions. We got a couple. Tim Noseworthy, and this blends. What he's talking about blends with what you were suggesting is the experimentation, or not suggesting but pointing out and suggesting that experimentation right now is probably a good thing, because you just never know who you're going to be lined up with when the playoffs begin, because it could be a war of attrition, right? And it's who's standing. Tim Noseworthy, what are your guys' thoughts on the Leafs doing something like putting Clifford and Simmons on the top line for the first shifts of the game to set the tone and build energy, then back to the usual lines. Like, to me, that is a shot across the bow. That's an opening salvo. Like, okay, one, I get it. I get what he's trying to do. I just don't know if the Leafs have it. It's like, really? These two dudes? Like, get out of here. They're not going to be able to last. And
Well, I have
we've got an answer to that in every which way, shape, or form. To me, that I get the concept, but putting it into practice with those guys and where we are right now, at the I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
well,
But
okay.
good idea.
I have to say that I do think the veteran guys and the guys who are more of the physical members will make their presence known. I don't think you have to put them on the left and right wing with Austin Matthews on the opening faceoff. You're not going to have them drop the gloves and do Rob Ray versus Ty Domi type of thing. But you've seen, that's the thing. You've seen Clifford. He scored a nice goal earlier, I believe a couple games ago.
Right.
He's been physical. He dropped the gloves with Tom Wilson against Washington. He's made his presence known. I mean, he's a respected guy in that locker room. He's going to stick up for his teammates. He's done it. He's won a Stanley Cup. So I think when the bell rings for that
Right.
game one, he's going to probably be on the fourth line. I would think that you're going to see one of Clifford or Simmons on that fourth line with Spezza and Colin Blackwell. And I think that they'll be there just to, make their presence felt. But we know that that's not the game that this team plays. This is not a team that's going to, they're going to get out hit by Boston. They're going to get out hit by Tampa. They're going to rely on puck possession. They're going to rely on, their offensive creativity being the difference. They're going to lose the hit battle because that's the way the team has been constructed. I don't agree with it. I think you need to be physical, but we're going to see whether that theorem is proved. But I think they'll make their presence known, and I think they're that's why they're there. And Simmons, he's going to be here next year, and Clifford's just signed a 2-year extension, so they recognize that they do offer something that is valuable to the team.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with Austin Matthews is his game really. I mean, he's peak his peak offensive ability. Where does he change his game? Where does he evolve his game? It's with becoming chippier, more physical. And remember the deterioration of the relationship between the opposition develops and deteriorates throughout the series. So Tim knows where these idea here of having the knuckle draggers line up with the elite might not be so far-fetched when we're into a game 6 or something where things have gotten it's a 3-2 series and things have gotten out of hand. You just never know, and that's the beauty of the playoffs. And I just hope the Leafs. Sorry, Mike, and I hate to cut you off. People unsubscribe because I cut you off.
No,
that's what it is. But no, here's the thing. That's the beauty of it. I hope the Leafs are in the thick of it, ready to roll them up and go toe-to-toe with these cats, if that's what's called for, because that'll show that this team is all in terms of winning now, exercising the demons, but more importantly, moving forward and accomplishing their goals.
Well, let's just say this. I could not have imagined Austin Matthews cross-checking anybody across the neck like he did with Rasmus Sandeen last month. And he got suspended for 2 games. But he was sort of like, he's a big kid, strong kid, and he didn't really want to get involved in the physical going. Now you've seen, he's along the boards, he's throwing his weight around, he's using his body to create offensive opportunities, and when he gets pushed, he pushes back, and that's valuable because he's a big kid.
Yeah.
And that's you need to do that, and that if he plays against Tampa Bay, that guys like Patrick Maroon or Victor Hedman, who's 6'7", or his former teammate in Zach Bogosian or Sergachev or McDonough, they're going to be leaning on Matthews because they know that they have to do that to win. So if he fights back, if he pushes back, that will give them a little negative reinforcement that we can't push this guy around. So,
push back, then emphasize the pushback with some offense. And that's the thing. You're foolhardy if you're just going to get sucked into someone else's game and be caught flat-footed or on your heels, and you're screwed, right? But there's a lot of things that we should be excited to see here. The Leafs, I don't know if they've been this offensively overpowering or overbearing. And again, look at Marner. He started off like garbage. People thought his career was done and he was gone, and the guy's going to hit 100 points. So there's a resurgence there. We've seen Nylander go from the doghouse to the penthouse. So there's, and again, there's kids on the team right now that have no association with 13, no association with, 19, 20, whatever. Right. So, there's a lot of things that I'm excited to see that represent a bit of a fresh start or a higher level than what we've been used to, even with a Leaf team up 3-1 on Montreal. We're going to get some more questions. Brad Tyndall, the Leafs have been flirting with positionless hockey at times. It can confuse hard match D, but can lead to odd man rushes against our forward going the other way. Will we see this in the playoffs? Should we see this in the playoffs? Did you get that?
It's a little bit of a convoluted.
So they're kind of out of position, right? The odd man rushes against the Leafs because they're positionless. Are we going to see them tighten things up a little bit, be a little bit more structured?
I would think so, but I also think that they're not going to go out of their comfort zone. I mean, the thing is that the way that they're going to try to win is
right.
Put the other team on the defensive. I mean, the one thing about Tampa is, and I think that a series against Tampa will be similar styles, meaning they're an offensive team. The Leafs are an offensive team. But the thing is, they have Vasilevsky, who's the great equalizer, and their defense is more, I think, battle-tested.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think the Leafs have some disadvantages there. What if they play Boston? Boston is the team that we've known. They're a defensive shutdown team. They're a physical team. It's contrasting styles, and what will have to be is the Leafs fighting through that. You're going to have Bergeron checking either Matthews or Tavares, and then if he shuts down whoever he's up against, then the other center is going to have to produce. And that's always been the case when it comes to Boston. Now they don't have David Krejci anymore. They don't. They don't.
I just don't think they're. I don't. Again, they're the intangibles, and we don't know if the Leafs are going to lose their nerve again. They have to prove they're not going to. But I don't know if Boston's equipped to the degree it was. And if this pound for pound, again, the Leafs are not the favorites, regardless, just in our hearts. But on paper, if you didn't have any skin in the game and there was no historical tie to what was happening now, you would say the Leafs are the better of the two. Just a couple of things we should get into before we take off. And again, thanks for joining us, all 19 of you. I always get like, oh, Norman's the best podcast ever. Yeah, tell your friends and have them come on over. Jim Bianchini, we can beat Florida teams if we stay healthy. Where was the one question? Need more cowbell. If the opposition goes all out on shutting down the Matthews line, where do the Leafs get scoring? There's tons of places, right?
Well, I mean, then the onus is on the line with John Tavares. I mean, and I don't know whether they're going to put Nylander back on that line. I think that they're probably going to go, based on the success that they've had recently, stick with Mikheyev with Tavares and Kerfoot or whatever. So I think that's likely where they're going to go.
Right.
If they go that way, then yeah, the onus is on Tavares and Mikheyev and those secondary players to step up off it. Now, the thing is, I don't know whether any team can shut down Matthews and Marner like Montreal did last year. Deno matched up against Matthews and Tavares wasn't there, and Kerfoot and Nylander picked up the slack.
Right.
I mean, that's what you're paying John Tavares $11 million for. And when in this first playoff, he showed up. In his first playoff against the Bruins, he showed up until Zdeno Chara punched him in the chops. So, and that's the thing. It's like I think there's more experience on this team. Their defense is better. What will they get the goaltending? Will they get the secondary offense? These are questions that we're not going to know until we're in the playoffs. So that we'll see what happens there.
So Nylander on the third line. I know his devotees think he should be on the first line with Matthews, and Marner should be traded to the junior L League, just because it's Marner. But like again, I don't think Austin Matthews wants to play with Nylander or anyone else other than number 16. There's a reason. He's got, it's Gretzky, Curry, whatever. So Marner, Nylander, second line, third line. He seems to do well on either because the Leafs have enough, complementary pieces to, help him on the second line or complement him on the third line. Unless he's not scoring, and then it's everybody else's fault. We all know that.
I think
do they want to spread the offense out, right? Because again, the concept is, well, let's put the top two guys on the top line, and then maybe the third best scorer on the third line. What's your opinion of how Sheldon Keefe has worked Nylander into the third line, and do you think that's fine for now, but we really need to stack the top two? And
I think they recognize that Nylander operates better when the offensive center flows through him, and on a line with Tavares, he's sort of the complementary guy.
Yeah.
Whereas when he's playing, and he, if they stick with what they're going with right now, the third line would be Engvall, Kampf, and Nylander. Now the thing is, though, in the playoffs, you want that checking line, which has been Engvall, Kerfoot, or Mikheyev and Kampf. You want that line matching up against the other team's offensive line, and if you put Nylander on there, I hate to, I'm not casting aspersions here, but he's the worst plus minus on the team. I think last time I looked, he was plus or minus 16 on a team that was mostly pluses. So, I don't know whether you could say, well, I want him playing with Camp and I want him playing with Kerfoot or with Engvall because they're more responsible defensively and they can cover up for his defensive inabilities. So you can make that point. He's minus 11 now. And I'm just looking here right now. I think he's the worst plus minus on the team.
Yeah, it's a point a game. And the thing about Nylander is we would again, and I'm being facetious when I kind of go on about his people, right? It is what it is, and I'd love the guy too. But here's the thing, okay? If he is the guy who is leading the charge in this playoff, if he's leading the charge, the Leafs are going to lose again.
Yes.
They're going to lose again.
And that's nothing against him.
That means Matthews and Marner,
right?
Those guys, for their own reasons, right? For their own preservation, and their terms of reputation. Those guys, you need everybody going. It can't be, well, Nylander the great playoff and everyone else fell. That's all kind of, it's very entitled and, combative, and the whole team, everybody needs to pull their weight. We need Nylander to do what he did last playoff, at least some of it, because he did a lot. But the big guys need to come through. And you're right, though, because he is an imaginative guy and very creative. And him having kind of control of a line is pretty unique. But let's face it, once the Leafs get on the power play, number 88 is integral, right? And that's where he can really shine and pick up the points and then collaborate with the other dudes. So it is interesting.
Especially on the power play, Norm. I mean, that's where, we're going to see. I mean, last year, we know the second half of the year, the power play was brutal. This year, the power play has been pretty consistent, although they went through like an 0 for 16.
But that's okay.
But then they got on track and they scored a power play goal yesterday. So they had their little hiccup. If their power play is operating the way it has been for most of the year in the playoffs, then that's a check mark in the positive column.
100%, man. 100%. Kanzeki, physical toughness and mental toughness. Do these Leafs have enough to elevate their game in the first round? And we can leave it with this question and your last words, Mike. But
I'll just
do they, right? And how do we know now? I think that is something that will hit the precipice in the playoffs, and there will be a moment, and they're either going to have to rise above it or they're going to succumb to it.
Well, team toughness. I mean, okay, do they have the individual players that other teams do? No, but they can rely on team toughness. And I do think that they'll stick up for each other. Guys like Muzzin and Clifford, who have been through the wars, they're going to be important. Guys like Simmons. But, last year in the playoffs, Jason Spezza, or a couple years ago, dropped the gloves in the play. It's up to each individual player to stick up for themselves and stick up for his teammates. So we'll see if they do that. I think they will, but that's a question of whether they win or not. Again, I think that's determined by who they play and how that team is playing when they get in the playoffs. We'll see.
So another one from Tyndall. With Mitch playing well, he could get Tavares going, and Willie with Matthews, not a terrible. It makes zero sense to go, all right, well, Matthews and Marner, you guys, together 200 points. They are the best, one of the best dynamic duos in the league. And then to say the playoffs are here, Mitch, go get Tavares going. Tavares doesn't need anybody to get him going.
He's got 75 points.
No, he doesn't need anybody to get him going. He didn't get a chance. And that's another thing. We talk about kind of reclaiming the reputation of being somebody who can perform. Tavares really didn't do much with the Islanders, and it'll be a knock on him. And we haven't really talked about him because he missed the playoffs last year after getting walloped. For him, he could John Tavares may just be the guy who stirs the drink for much of a lengthy playoff run if the Leafs have one, for a multitude of reasons. Maybe none more so than him saying, I get a chance to play some playoff hockey again. It's been 2 long years because I was barely involved in that series last year. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, Tavares takes his role as the leader of this team seriously. Obviously, there was nothing he could do about what happened to him in Game 1 last year. It cast a pall over the entire playoffs for the team, and then losing to Montreal was just the right. negative cherry on top of the sundae. So he's got a lot to prove to himself and to his team, and in terms of being that leader. And he's played great this year. I know a lot of people have been disappointed. I mean, he's got a point per game, so I don't think you can ask much more of John Tavares than scoring a point per game when Austin Matthews has 100 points and Mitch Marner is probably going to end up with 100 points by the end of the season.
There's only so much puck to go around, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's, I know he's making $11 million. He's the second line center. He plays 20 minutes a night, but he's the second line. He's the second line center, but he's on the power play. So, would you like him to have 90, 95 points? Sure. But 80, like right now he's on pace for 81, 82 points. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting how we analyze things and look back, and if we knew then what we know now kind of stuff. The John Tavares sign, and we're getting off track. I'm gonna let you have the last word here, but that John Tavares signing meant more than just a player coming over and putting up 80, 90 points, but not enough for the fan base because of what he's making. Like that had a ripple effect. That signing was required for more reasons than bringing in an elite player. And we know this. A lot of people forget that. That was a big deal for Kyle Dubas. That was a big deal for this organization. That's the biggest free agent signing in the history of an organization that's been around 110 years.
And I think that, and we'll see whether this comes to fruition over the next couple of years. I think that there was always a hesitancy regarding Toronto-based players coming back home. We saw Stamkos not want to come here, but the reason he didn't want to come is because he didn't want to be perceived as having to be the savior. Because at that point, Matthews
made a good call. He won 2 cups.
Right, but that was not. I mean, yes, Tampa was on the precipice, but the reason he did is because all the weight would have been on him. You didn't know what Matthews was going to be. You didn't know what Marner was going to be at that point. You didn't know what Nylander was going to be. 2 years later, John Tavares, Matthews had won the Calder. Everybody knew he was going to be a star. The other Leaf players that are established. You saw that this team was on the rise. Now with this core group, if they can have some success in the playoffs, it's sort of like what's happening with the Bills in Buffalo. You're going to have players wanting to play for the Leafs. You can only hope that like a guy like Giordano, recognizing that what's going on in Toronto right now, if they have some success, do you think Giordano might want to re-sign with this team for a little bit less for a year or two that had a chance to win a Stanley Cup that he hasn't won in his career? I think there's a
Why wouldn't
possibility.
he? Unless there was some stupid payday waiting for him.
Unless
Why
he
the
wants to
hell?
go, unless he wants to go back to Calgary and finish his career, it would make sense that they could re-sign him. But I'm just saying, this team is in a position right now that if they have some success, there will be other players who come and, like other successful teams, take a little less to play for them and to potentially win with them.
Just Tavares going back to 12-13. He's about every team he's played on is about of the playoffs in the first round, except for the 15-16 Islanders. And
Yeah,
you know what? He was big. He was one of the reasons why they won that
he
first round
scored.
series.
He scored the overtime winner over
Right.
Florida. So yeah,
Yeah, 11 points in 11 games. So the Leafs collectively have a lot to prove to everybody, but most importantly themselves. Telling you right now, number 91, that is a I mean, he's not a dark horse because we're expecting a lot from him, but this guy, there's a lot on the line for this cat. And in terms of the big four, he's the eldest, and he's probably getting to a point where he's thinking to himself, I need to turn the corner here. Not because I don't play well in the playoffs, not because I haven't had a great career. I don't know if it's a Hall of Fame career, but he has a really solid career. But he didn't play last year. He missed out, and I'm expecting some things from this guy. You speaking of the Toronto guys, the the Giordano Simmons Spezza goal the other night. Now that was those dudes 10 years ago, and that was every so often there's something there. And now Philadelphia was a shit show, right? They couldn't D it up against anybody, but that was pretty, right? That was the
oh,
old boys.
it was a fantastic goal, and we'd like to see more of that, and I think you probably could see more of that in the playoffs. And I know that's like somebody who is an acquaintance of mine sent me a message and say that might be Jason Spezza's last goal, and I'm like, the guy's a fourth liner. I know he's 38 or 39 years old. He scored 11 goals this year. If
Yeah.
they want him back, and if he wants to come back, he's coming back. So I don't think that was Jason Spezza's last goal.
And I'll tell you, if the Leafs go on a long playoff run, we're going to see more goals from him. We'll leave it with Corey Parrish. This year just feels different. Can't explain it, but it just does. Guess we will see. Those 4 words, Corey. Guess we will see. Um, with a question mark. Mike, anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, just I would say tomorrow will be a fairly entertaining game against Tampa Bay, and yeah, I think if the Leafs beat Tampa, they're doing themselves a favor of making a Boston Toronto series more likely.
That's the that's one of the reasons to go and play that game the way they need to. But beating Tampa at this point, they just beat them. Really not going to mean a hell of a lot, other than maybe setting themselves up for a better chance of success finally in the playoffs in the first round if they can match up against the Boston team that seems finally ripe for defeat. But as Corey Parrish says, guess we will see. OG's Converse, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll get back at you sometime later in this week, most likely Sunday. For Mike, I'm Norm. We're out.